Hello everyone, welcome back to another session of previous year's question paper analysis, your quick and smart way to stay ahead before semester exams. I'm Dr. RK and today we are diving into three classic topics that always find their way into your political thought papers. The Sophists, the nature of Greek political thought, and the legendary church-state controversy. So, if you have ever wondered what's expected in these answers or how to impress your examiner in just a few crisp paragraphs, stick around. Let's break it all down together. Let's start with the most recurring 5 marker or even 10 marker or even 12 marker in some cases. Explain about the Sophists. So, who were these folks? The Sophists were a group of professional educators in ancient Greece, especially prominent in the 5th century BCE. You can think of them as the first traveling intellectuals, kind of like today's consultants, but for rhetoric, public speaking, and argumentation. Now here's the thing. The word sophist comes from sophos, meaning wise, but over time, the term got a bad reputation. Why? Can you imagine the reason? Because the sophists charged money for education, and more importantly, they taught how to win arguments, not necessarily how to find the truth. Famous names include Protagoras, who said, "Man is the measure of all things." That's a powerful line. It means truth is relative. What's true for you may not be true for me. Radical idea indeed, it is. Especially in a society trying to build democracy. They believed in subjectivity, moral relativism, and pragmatism, but their critiques, especially Socrates, Plato, and later Aristotle, said, no, truth is not just opinion, there is a deeper, rational, universal order. So, if this comes as a 5-mark question, you want to quickly define who the Sophists were, mention their key ideas like relativism, rhetoric, and pragmatism, and maybe drop 1 or 2 names like Protagoras or Gorgias. If it's for 10 or 12 marks, add a little on. The historical context, that is, rise of democracy in Athens, then criticism by Socrates or Plato, and then their contribution to political thought. Even if they were controversial, they pushed the boundaries of thinking. They introduced individual into political philosophy. That's big. Now let's shift gears. A slightly broader question: what is the nature of Greek political thought? This one is usually a 10 marker or 12 marker, sometimes even a short note. The key here is to capture the essence. Start with the idea that Greek political thought marks the beginning of Western political philosophy. We are talking about the period from 5th to 4th century BCE, with names like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle leading the way. Now, what are the core features of this tradition? Let me simplify it into 5 points. First, rational inquiry. Greeks used to reason to understand politics, not myths or divine revelations. For them, political order could be understood, debated, and improved through logic, just like debating assemblies. Second point is focus on the polis, P-O-L-I-S. Greek thinkers were obsessed with the polis, or the city-state. They believed the good life could only be lived as a citizen in a well-ordered state. Third point, ethical and normative. Greek thought wasn't just about what is, but what ought to be. That means how should life be governed, not how life is governed. Plato's Republic is a great example. He imagined a just, ideal society led by philosopher kings. Fourth point, human-centered. While gods existed, politics was seen as a human activity. Think of Aristotle's famous line, "Man is by nature a political animal." And that's central to Greek philosophy. Fifth point, class and citizenship consciousness. Not everyone was a citizen. Women, slaves, and foreigners were excluded. So even as Greek thought was progressive, it was also limited. Don't forget to touch upon the dialectical method, especially used by Socrates. This method of questioning became the foundation of democratic dialogue. In your answer, you can mention Plato's idealism, Aristotle's realism, and the transition from myth to reason. The best answers are those that link ideas to thinkers and show how political thought matured from the Sophists to Socrates to Plato and Aristotle. All right, final topic, the church state controversy. Now we fast forward to medieval Europe. The setting is no longer Athens, but Europe in the Middle Ages, where the church, especially the Catholic Church, was the most powerful institution. The big question, who has supreme authority, the Pope or the King? This conflict began around the 11th century and continued for centuries. It wasn't just a religious or political debate, it was a clash of worldviews. Let's break this down. The church claimed divine authority, asserting that spiritual power was above temporal or political power. Monarchs, especially in rising nation-states, pushed back. They wanted to control their own clergy, tax church lands, and appoint bishops. One of the most famous flashpoints, the investiture controversy, a dispute between Pope Gregory VII and Pope Henry IV of the Holy Roman Empire over who could appoint church officials. It got so intense that Henry had to walk barefoot to the Pope's castle in Canossa to seek forgiveness, a power move by the Pope, but also a symbol of the tug-of-war between religious and political power. Eventually, compromises were made, but this controversy planted the seeds of secularism. Thinkers like Marcellus of Padua and later Martin Luther challenged the church's political authority, paving the way for modern concepts of state sovereignty and separation of powers. For a 10 markers or 12 marker, you can answer in this way. First, outline the conflict, then mention key events like the investiture controversy. For a 10 marker, you can outline the conflict, mention key events like the investiture controversy, show how it led to the decline of papal supremacy and rise of secular modern state, and always end with the impact, how this led to modern political thought, especially in Renaissance and Reformation. And that's a wrap. To quickly recap, Sophists introduced relativism and rhetoric. Greek political thought gave us reason, the polis, and the idea of political ethics, and the church-state controversy set the stage for secular modern governance. These questions may seem historical, but they are the roots of how we think about power, politics, and justice even today. If you found this useful, hit the subscribe button and don't forget to check out our other episodes in the previous year's analysis series. I'm Dr. RK, wishing you clarity, confidence, and a solid 5 out of 5 on these questions. Until next time, stay curious, stay prepared. Hello dear learners, welcome back to the previous year's question paper analysis series, where we don't just prepare for exams, we prepare to understand. I'm your host Dr. RK, and in today's session we will be decoding 4 theory-based questions that often appear in political science semester exams. Questions that may look short but carry depth when handled right. Here is what we are covering. First, what are Locke's views on human nature? Second, explain the concept of general will. Third, write about communism of property. And fourth, what is eternal law? Let's begin. Pen, paper, and presence of mind. Let's start with a common but crucial question. What are John Locke's views on human nature? Now, remember, this isn't just about quoting Locke. It's about showing how his view of human nature shaped modern liberalism. So, what did Locke believe? Locke saw human beings as rational, peace-loving, and capable of self-government. Unlike Hobbes, who imagined life in the state of nature as solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short, Locke said, hold on, humans in the state of nature were actually free and equal, and mostly cooperative. His famous line, the state of nature has a law of nature to govern it. And what is that law? That is called reason. He believed that human reason guides individuals to respect others' life, liberty, and property. Now, here is the catch. While humans are reasonable, the state of nature lacks an impartial judge. That's where the social contract comes in. Not to escape violence, but to protect property through a civil government. So in your answer, begin with Locke's basic assumption. Humans are rational and moral. Mention how this differs from Hobbes. Link it to Locke's views on rights, law of nature, and limited government. Locke's view of human nature wasn't just a theory. It was the foundation of liberal constitutionalism. Alright, let's move on to the next. So next up, a concept that's short in question but deep in meaning. Explain about general will. This one is all about J.J. Rousseau. So what is the general will? In simple terms, it's the collective will of the people aimed at the common good. It's not just what the majority wants. It's what everyone wants if they thought rationally and morally. Let's break it down. Rousseau wrote in The Social Contract that individuals must surrender all their rights to the community. In return, they don't lose freedom. They gain moral liberty by obeying law they collectively create. The general will represents this collective morality. It's individual, inalienable, and always aimed at the public interest. Here is the key. It's not the same as the will of all, which could be selfish or based on group interests. General will is abstract but ideal. It guides the state's legitimacy. So in your answer, define it clearly, emphasize the distinction from majority will, show its role in Rousseau's idea of sovereignty, and if space allows, mention critiques like how general will could become authoritarian if misused. This idea influenced direct democracy, republicanism, and even modern constitutions. So we are done with Rousseau's general will and Locke's ideas on human nature. Next up is write about communism of property. So what is it? All right, let's move on to a question rooted in radical political thought. Write about communism of property. This concept refers to the common ownership of property, a core idea in Marxist and early socialist philosophy. In capitalist systems, property is privately owned, which leads to inequality, class conflict, and exploitation. Communism of property rejects this. In the Communist Manifesto, Marx and Engels argue for abolishing private property, especially the kind that allows one class to exploit another. They are not talking about your toothbrush or your home. They are talking about capital. That means factories, land, means of production. So what is their goal? The goal is to remove class divisions, create a classless and stateless society, and ensure collective ownership of resources for common benefits. Plato also talked about communal property, especially among the guardian class. But Marxist communism goes further. It's economic, social, and political. So in your answer, define the term, link it to Karl Marx, Engels, mention abolition of private property as a revolutionary idea, and if space permits, mention how socialist states tried implementing it with mixed outcomes. It's a bold idea, often debated, but always significant in political thought. And finally, we turn to a more philosophical concept. That is, what is eternal law? This comes from the medieval Christian thinker Thomas Aquinas. Aquinas defined eternal law as the divine wisdom of God that governs the entire universe. It's the highest form of law, which is timeless, universal, and the source of all other laws. So how does it work? According to Aquinas, God's rational plan for creation is the eternal law. It's not written in books, it's woven into the order of the cosmos, into natural law, and into human conscience. From this eternal law flow natural law, divine law, and human law. Natural law is accessible by human reason, divine law is revealed through scripture, and human law is made by governments. So when we act morally and rationally, we participate in eternal law. When we act unjustly, we go against it. So in your answer, define eternal law clearly as God's rational will, then place it within Aquinas' hierarchy of laws, and then go on to show its influence on the natural rights tradition and later legal theory. It may feel abstract, but this idea is the bridge between religion, morality, and law, and it influenced centuries of Western thought. So, there you have it. 4 heavyweight concepts. Each one is small in wording, but massive in learning. Let's quickly recap. Locke's human nature. It's all about rational, moral, and rights-bearing. Rousseau's general will. The moral compass of a collective society. Communism of property. a radical call for collective ownership, and eternal law, that is the divine reason that anchors all law and morality. These aren't just answers, they are building blocks of political thinking. So, next time you see these in an exam, write not just to fill space, but to express clarity, contrast, and connection. This is Dr. AK, and this has been your 15-minute power session previous year's questions. If this helped, revisit it during revision and share it with a friend who needs just the right push. Until next time, think deep, write smart, stay ahead.